In the Man Cave, guys. It's late night, it's after dark, and you're like, man, it doesn't look like night, but it will. Listen, it will be late night by the time you watch this. Double fist bump to you, my friend. Friends, I'm in front of an abandoned church, and I'm always wondering why this church that I'm in front of could seat close to 1,000 people. It's made of brick. It's a beautiful building, but all the windows are busted out. And it's just been left here to rot. Friends, and my question is always this: why is this church not having Sunday service? And oftentimes it's the same reason, because people did not follow the word of the Lord. They cut corners, and the Bible screams this out, that they had a form of godliness but denied the power thereof, meaning they're doing their own thing, okay? And they're running the church like they would run a business, and eventually what happens is God's Spirit just leaves the building. So guys, when I look at a building like this, an old abandoned church, I always think this: what in the world took place here at this church, this actual church, that it is rotting from the inside out? The ceiling is caving in, the windows are busted out, there's graffiti all over it, okay? And it's just an eyesore. And you know, it drives me crazy, because at one time, okay, I'm believing that there may have been a person who was called of God, who was anointed of God, who was in that pulpit, and for a season, for a short time, he was preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ correctly. He wasn't cutting corners, and he wasn't trying to appease men. And yet, what has taken place in this church is the Lord has departed. And when the Lord departs, let me tell you what you always have. You're going to have sickness, you're going to have heartache, you're going to have misery. God's not going to hear your prayers when you're a part of something that's not a part of him. In Ezekiel chapter 10, let me tell you what was going on. God was pleading with Israel to listen, to hearken, to obey his laws, but they didn't want to do it. They were so used to having what? Divided loyalties and doing their own thing, serving the Baals, serving these idols over here, doing their own thing, paying a little tribute to Jehovah once in a while, okay? Like God's going to swallow that down, and God will never swallow that spoon down, my friends. You have to realize, okay? What he does is he longs for us to do the right thing in his long suffering and patience. But when we don't do that, eventually what's going to take place is he's going to judge. And one of the judgments is this: it's the greatest judgment of all, okay? Is him leaving, him departing, him taking his anointing, his Spirit off a person or off a building. And you're like, man, I can't believe that. If you read Romans 1, Paul describes that God is what? Giving up, allowing a person to just implode because they didn't glorify God, they didn't obey God, they weren't thankful for the God of what? Creation. They were living under the light of his blessing and his favor, and yet they didn't want to acknowledge that the reason I'm living so good, so well, is because of God. And God eventually takes back what he gave them. Friend, in Ezekiel chapter 10, we have a tragic story. Again, Israel, okay, is not hearkening unto the word of the Lord. They're not listening. And as a result, God, okay, whose presence was in the temple, whose glory was in the temple, he starts to withdraw himself. And it's amazing, because you can actually see the manifestation of God's glory. His presence came out of the Holy of Holies, and it just kind of hovered there. And then it came a little further, and then it came a little further, and eventually God's glory was in the courtyard, and eventually God's glory was above the temple, but the people could care less, and eventually God's glory left that place. How tragic. Friends, this is what happens when we don't realize that God is stepping back in our lives because of sin, and that God is not honoring what's going on in our lives and in his church. His church. Not man's church, but his church, okay? The church now is individuals who are what? Born again believers. It's not the people that actually go to a church, okay? We always think of, hey, I'm a member of this church. No, if you're a part of Jesus Christ, you're a believer in Jesus Christ, you're a follower of Christ, you're obedient, okay? There's a difference about you. The fruit of the Spirit are flowing in and out of your life. You're not like the world. You have nothing to do with the world. And again, I'm terrified of churches across America that are playing church and God has left. Friends, I've been invited to go to those churches, some of them, that God's Spirit had departed from. And when I entered in, it looked like any other building. The people were friendly. I had no idea what was going on behind closed doors, behind the curtains. But when I got in the pulpit and I couldn't feel the presence of my God, I couldn't feel His Spirit, He wasn't speaking to me, I was terrified because I knew something was going on within that building, okay? I mean, something terrible was going on. And to have a service Sunday after Sunday, Wednesday after Wednesday, okay, playing church when God has departed, are you kidding me? Listen, are you kidding me? And there are individuals who are living their lives just that way. God has departed from them, but they're not aware of it. They've been playing life. They've been playing church. You know, they've been playing themselves for a fool. God has walked away a long time ago. And friends, those individuals have been playing Christian. They're broken down. The windows are busted in. They're boarded up. There's nothing left. They're empty on the inside. And as a result, guys, I'm not going to lie to you, as a result of being empty on the inside for a long time, I was empty on the inside. As a result of that, let me tell you what takes place. You long to be filled, but you're not willing to give up the sin. And so you have to go to the trough. You have to go to the dog's vomit. You have to go to the pigsty. You have to sin greater and greater and greater for that short-term pleasure that never brings satisfaction, that never brings any lasting peace. Oh, guys, we can't do this anymore. And our churches across the nation are crumbling. Religion in and of itself is so dangerous because people get into habits and they think, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going to a church building. I'm giving money. I'm singing the 3 songs. I'm listening to 40 minutes or 30 minutes or 20 minutes. Then I'm going to Sunday school. Or I'm in a larger church and they have a band up there entertaining me for a while. And yet the whole time I'm wondering in the back of my head, is this really God? Is this because I don't feel anything? I'm not really hearing anything. I'm not seeing the power of God. I'm not seeing miracles. I'm not seeing healings. I mean, it's not what I read in the book of Acts. I mean, all the things that I read in the Bible aren't really transpiring in my church. And a lot of times you got it right. It's not. And so what do you need to do? Friends, I'll leave that question with you. In your life and with the church you're attending. Matt thinks it's a good idea because God says so to go to church. He says, don't forsake the assembly. But you got to go where God is. And if you're not going to do that, guess what? This is going to be your life, okay? And this is going to be the building that you attended Sunday after Sunday that you gave your money to, okay? And it did nothing for anyone. This is Matt, late night in the Man Cave.